Paulo Alcazaren is an architect whose passion is urban planning, and it shows in part in his sketches of urban design to solve Metro Manila's perennial flooding problem that he posts on his Facebook page. I sat down to a conversation with Alcazaren and got a lecture, not just on urban planning or the lack of it in the metropolis, but also politics, governance, sociology, history, and civic mindedness. We know there'll be another one of those great floods, and the Bayanihan spirit just won't be enough. Our solutions are more band-aid than long-term, more stopgap than well thought out, more rescue and relief than real rehabilitation and forward planning. In the first of this three-part interview, Alcazaren forces us all to think real hard about the answer to this question. What do we need to do right?
I have a regular Facebook posting, but this has been the most feedback I've gotten in one day for this series of sketches. Of course, I quote it with humor, but then after you hook them in, then the serious message comes out.
Yeah, oh, well, the humor there, medyo tongue-in-cheek, ano? There's a diver.
Well, it is humorous, but it's the truth that
Yeah.
you will find portions of Metro Manila flooded deep enough. You really need the frogmen or the Philippine Navy kung umaandar yung mga scuba nila to go and rescue people.
So you replace it with this?
Oh, this,
Yeah.
since I posted the first one, then a friend of mine, also an architect, saw it and said, oh, let's try and improve it so the color coding is more obvious and people can relate to it. And then he posted this, and it also got tons of hits. And
the message here also, Paulo, is that if we live in Metro Manila, we might as well start building houses on stilts. Ganun ba yun?
we used to. I mean, in the old days, the Nipa houses were on stilts, and even in the early American period, the Gabaldon schoolhouses were all elevated above the ground because drainage was not good then. Of course, it's still not good now, but the situation is even worse. So stilts is the way to go, and you will find that as a part of vernacular architecture all over Southeast Asia because of the realities of typhoons and monsoon rains.
I suppose we have this serious lack of common sense when it comes to urban planning.
When it comes to urban planning, common sense is not non-existent. It's not common here. But seriously, it's a problem of the lack of context, which is reflective of our governance structure also. Like Metro Manila is 16 cities in one town. And the interventions or mitigations are all focused in the individual LGUs. Same with planning. But in reality, when you plan, you have to plan in a much larger context, because the floodwaters will not stop at the border of Marikina and Quezon City, or Quezon City and San Juan, or Pasig and Taguig. It will not stop there. This is using humor really, and the only way for us to ensure that there's no flooding and that the public works and everyone involved with it will not fail is to build the houses of the government officials between the river and us. So if it fails, sila ang unang mapipinsala.
What will finally convince government? What will finally convince us to just do it and
to not allow informal settlements along the river or any place where informal settlers are, because
or at least along the river at the very least? At
the very least. Well, you cannot solve that problem by not addressing the larger problem of the lack of access to social housing or affordable housing. Function of government is protect us, keep us safe, give us livelihood, and give us shelter. And government fails in those basic services, from national all the way to LGU. They fail. It's not a priority, or the resources are not channeled towards it. If you do not give people opportunities or options for shelter, they will find and do it themselves, or the informal sector, which is the mafia of all of those people who allow this informal settlements to happen, they will work. So there's a need, and people have filled the need by finding all of these areas, leftover spaces for them to settle in. But they are, of course, all in vulnerable spaces or high hazard areas. The issues whenever the disasters come is the disaster itself and the human drama that happens. That's what media focuses on, and everybody else, of course, you will ask about the larger issues, but they have a very short shelf life, because it's boring to talk about the larger issues. But if we don't do it, it will just happen over and over again. Which, if we look at our neighbors in Southeast Asia, they've addressed because they had the political will to do it, and they realized that if they don't do it, it will bite them in the ass years later. And of course, the big picture, the elephant in the room, in any room where these discussions are brought up, is population. Of course, the RH hopefully will address that to a certain extent. Not that RH is a population control measure.
Ito na naman tayo eh.
Yeah.
The real measure of that is when I saw your Facebook account, you were posting illustrations that you had done in 2009.
Yes, in 2009.
Ito na naman tayo, di ba?
Yes, yes. It's just like my friend Jun Palafox this morning or yesterday, in his spiel is the same. It's if he would just replayed an interview of his 3 years ago, it's the same thing. So with a number of us who are involved in physical planning or in the natural in the geosciences, like Mahar Nagbay and the people from the Manila Observatory, Tony Yulo. It's the same thing over and over again. You tell people, and the awful thing is that government has short memories. 3 years ago, ito yung proposal ko para sa standard barangay center, which is usually one story. They find a corner or unused lot or whatever leftover space, tapos lalagyan nila ng barangay center. But to be really useful, you have to make it at least 4 stories, or have at least 1 story above the historic high water mark, which in today's history is every 3 years.
Right. Right.
So the old limit of the engineers of the 100-year flood is not anymore 50 years ago. It's 3 years ago, and it's happening every 3 years. Or the best built for the least expense. If you had so many thousand barangays all over the country, and half of them are prone to floods, then you will find a supplier who can build them at high quality for the least cost. Of course, assuming everything is transparent. No.
Okay.
But rubber or metal or fiberglass, it all depends also on gaano kakikitid yung mga kali sa barangay. That's where you have your planning. This is the biggest problem in informal settlers, is the standards don't allow for rescue and relief. From fire to floods to anything else, because the esquinitas are too small. They're made because that's the width of the tricycle, or that's the width.